why not add one rule to being able to import into the German market? You don't have to not only have to show that it's not harmful to people, but who consume the product, but also not harmful to the people who produced the product.
Hi everyone, I am Martina Schiuma, and today with the D Factory we have Juliane Michel. Since 2016, Juliane Michel is working with ISA-TRAESKO, a German importer specialized in producing and trading of shoes and accessories, where she is global head of corporate responsibility, leading the department for social and environmental standards, sustainability, supply chain, and auditing and training. So, hi Juliane, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me and for the invitation. I'm really happy to talk to you today.
Where are you right now?
I am in Germany. It is unbelievably cold and rainy today, so not the best day, but happy to sit inside and talk with you about some interesting questions today.
Let's tell us a little bit about you and your job as Global Head of Corporate Responsibility. What are you doing? Which are your responsibilities?
Yeah, so this job actually grew over the past years. So in the beginning, I was only focusing on the social standards of our supply chain. And then I added the Department for Environmental Responsibility, but because if we care about the supply chain and the people in it, we also have to care about the environment in it. And then after a few years, we decided, okay, all of these topics that we are working on in the supply chain and also in our headquarters here, because, you know, of course, Germany has very strong environmental laws and labor laws, for example, but each company has to rethink their own strategies as well. Like, what can you do in your own backyard, right? So we said we will set up one overall topic and one overall department for sustainability, which I'm also leading today. So yeah, a lot of different topics, a lot of different responsibilities, but all connected. And our bosses, our general managers, they believe that it's important to invest in these issues because our business model is doing business with a global connected world, right? So if we just take out of it, but don't take care that we also improve and get better while doing it and give back, there won't be a future for our business in the end.
I totally agree. I couldn't agree on this point.
Yeah.
And if you have to describe what is your objective as global head of corporate responsibility, what would you say just using one word? So imagine when you wake up the morning, what is your long-term objective and the objective of your company?
That's it. One word is very difficult to find. Yeah, we always talk about transparency, to be honest. And I believe that all the issues that we are working with, be it in environmental parts, be it in social parts, be it in sustainability parts, and also like how can we involve all of the people, also the people who are going to the shops and buying things. My job in the end is to make everyone understand what's going on in our supply chain. I believe that is my responsibility. And once everyone is aware and everyone has all the knowledge and details, then people will make the right decision in their buying decisions. That's my belief and hope for the future. Yeah.
That's great. So what do you think is the most urgent problem you face in your company? So you spoke about supply chain, transparency and traceability. And what's your most urgent problem and what are you doing to tackle it?
Yeah, I think I have to go back to transparency here because, you know, our main business is the shoe business, and shoe business today is not being done in Germany anymore. We have to be honest about that. So the main problems is not in our head office here. I mean, like I said before, there's still a lot to improve in our office as well. But the main responsibility we have is in our supply chains. And one shoe, one sneaker, for example, we are talking about 25 different materials. And each of these materials, they have their own supply chain going back to some chemical lab, to some fields where the materials are being harvested. So our problem is to find all the relevant players and make sure that they comply with our environmental and social standards. And I believe that this is actually the crucial point for all companies who are working in global productions, because no matter how big or how small you are, or which product you produce, if you don't know where you're producing, it's you have no control. And we started to dig into our supply chains like for 6 years now. We are still not finished. There's still struggles that we have. The deeper we go, the more difficult it gets, right? Because of course, with our factories, we have a very strong bond, but then with our material suppliers, we maybe also still have a strong bond, but then the suppliers who deliver materials to our material departments or factories, there the bond is getting less. So yeah, if you're asking me what is our main problem, our main issue, it is to identify all the relevant players. And it is also very difficult to explain to them that we want this information, but nobody else is asking for it, because we have to look at the whole industry. The reality on the ground is that at this moment, not many people or many companies are digging that deep into their supply chain. I think more and more are getting aware and are trying to be conscious and try to be sustainable. And I mean, I'm also not at 100% sustainability, right? Nobody is, I believe, but there are some very, very good companies who are doing it. There are some who take it seriously and who are on their way, like us. But then there are still a lot of companies who don't do anything. And this is why we are also here in Germany, we are part of initiatives trying to tackle this as a whole. Because if one company is trying to change the labor law in China, for example, that's not going to work. We have to be honest, no matter how much work we put into that.
That one important point is really try to engage your supply chain in this transition process. I would say you also mentioned the importance of really achieve a good level of compliance with respect to the environmental and social standards that you put in place. I mean, what I want to ask you, how this process really takes place. How do you validate and audit your supply chain? And which are the biggest challenges you may face on this process?
Yeah, so, you know, it was our program that we have today for our factories and our material factories. It was a long process, a long way until we came to our standard today. And, you know, a lot of companies are asking me like, okay, but oh my God, it's impossible. My supply chain is a black box. I cannot start. And I always say, okay, but at some point you have to start. And I don't want to lie to anybody and say, oh, it was super easy. We just started and then suddenly we knew everything. I mean, that's not how it happens. And it also cost us a lot of money and it cost us a lot of time. But in the long term, it's also a very good investment, I believe, to know your risks in your supply chain. So what we did is I have a very, very great local team on the ground, mainly in China, because the shoe business today is still, I would say, globally speaking, 95% in China, speaking by volume, of course. So my teams is there and in India and in other countries as well, but mainly in China. And we developed a system with the factories together where we said, okay, we go to you, we are your partner. let's be honest with each other and talk about what are the real problems. Because if you give them, like a lot of companies, they send a code of conduct, they ask them to sign it, and then they send once a year a third party company to check for an audit protocol. Then one day a year they come, they make an assessment and they say, if the factory is honest and shows their problem, they're going to fail this audit. So then in the end, everyone reads this report and they won't come back to this factory because they say, oh, they have problems. So, but then if the factory is not showing their real problems, of course, nobody will ever work with the factory on these real problems. So what we did is we have a transparent and open partnership approach. We go to the factories, we say, okay, listen, there are some hard no-goes. For example, if we find any child working in this factory, we are out. But if you, for example, have a lot of overtime at the weekends, or if, for example, maybe last month you didn't pay your workers in time, let's try to find out what this is about. Let's try to find a solution and let's try to get better in the end. So that's not always working, I have to be honest, but in a lot of times we have seen over the past year very good developments and progress. And yeah, I still strongly believe that this is the right way to go, that you are a partner to your production partners and not just like a customer who sends some papers with a requirement, okay, please follow this, and then you leave them alone. I don't think that's going to be working for anyone.
Absolutely. Sustainability is a cooperation process. It's a process of co-development, and
Absolutely.
it's a really difficult process. There are many different steps to do. They are not always the same. They may be even more tricky in some places than in other. So I think it's a real good approach to have.
Yeah.
I know also that you are among the 50 companies that are asking to strengthen the German mandatory due diligence law. So could you please tell us a little bit more about this law and why you think it is important?
Or if you as one company go to a factory and tell them, okay, listen, you have to be transparent, you have to be open, you have to be better with your social standards, they're going to say, okay, if you're an interesting customer for me, I will do it, but it's still a very strong, hard struggle. So what would be actually a very good tool to help us would be if there's a strong law and strong regulation. If you want to deliver goods into the German market, you have to make sure that you have a fair and clean production line. And I think that mindset is actually something that should be, well, from a moral perspective, of course, right anyway, but also from a business perspective, we are thinking, we are getting kicked out of so many business opportunities because we are too expensive, because we are investing into good factories. And also, you have to pay my salary. If a company doesn't have any social compliance team or any environmental team, of course, they can offer cheaper products, right? So for us to say, okay, there's a strong regulation on the German market. It's a smart business idea for companies who are already doing a little bit or a lot of social or environmental work. And yeah, I know nobody is perfect yet. This is what I said in the beginning, but I believe that this is a good opportunity for companies to work on this. And if everyone is working on it, I think we can actually really achieve some change in the end.
So really to have an industry-wide change, what do you think is the role of the government and public institutions to make this change happen? Do you think they have to work with the private sectors? And with this respect, why the due diligence can be powerful?
Yeah, 100%. At the moment, we see so many factories. They are saying, okay, which customer are you? I have this folder with this information, this for this, and everywhere they prepare their own little information, and it's like, I think it's also hard for factories and for supply chains and for companies to arrange themselves with this. And I can change as a company, I can change the mindset of my business partners. I believe this is my responsibility, and I will continue to do this no matter what. But then there are the bigger pictures, the bigger issues. For example, concerning overtime works. This is nothing one factory can change. This is always connected to the whole industry, to the whole setup. So if there's no pressure from government to government level, this is not going to be changed. This is nothing one company can solve, no matter how big they is. So I believe as a society and as a community and as a country, we have to do one joint approach to move these topics forward.
But what do you think the other governments, because even as you said before, the production is almost 90% in China, so we really need to collaborate even with other institutions to make a real change. Which would be the impact of the due diligence even outside Germany?
Why not add one rule to being able to import into the German market? You don't have to not only have to show that it's not harmful to people, but who consume the product, but also not harmful to the people who produced the product. And I know there's a lot of fear that it's going to be too much bureaucracy, too much hassle to prove. But I believe there are some good ways to make sure or to help companies prove that they have made this effort and they have a good supply chain, and that these companies in the end will be the winner of this competition by doing fair and good business.
Yeah, because as you said, it's easy to prove that your product is not harmful for the customer, but it's no way more difficult to prove that the entire supply chain, that it's also the value chain, that really the value created as a company, as a business for your customers is doing well. So it's really creating value instead of destroying value and resources.
Yeah, like when I started my business or in this business, I've seen like in the shoe, for example, if you have a textile on the shoe, you can make the textile clean very easily by washing it 1,000 times, right? But then these chemicals are not in the product, and you can deliver a clean product, but these chemicals ended up in some streams, some rivers in China, and in the end in our oceans, and harming people there and all over the globe. So of course, production can never be seen just by in one spot. No, we have to have a global perspective on that. For sure.
Absolutely. In India, they say that you can understand and discover which is the next trend color of the fashion week just looking at the river, because it's so polluted. At the end, the product is a valuable product because maybe it's a really a good product made of good quality, but then you don't know what's the impact of this product along the entire supply chain and the workers that live in these cities. And the same thing is for China. The production cities for garment factor are extremely polluted, and their waters are extremely polluted.
Yeah, but also there, right? There are some super good factories who are doing amazing work, also with material innovation. I mean, there are so many smart Chinese business people who came up with the coolest sustainable materials. But also for them, they are being kicked out of the business because there are so many cheap options to just destroy the environment and just offer a cheaper product if you don't care about the environment. And I mean, ISA-TRAESKO is not like a organic company, no? Like in Germany, we have some small organic fair trade shops. I love these shops, but this is not us. And this is not the main part of our global business, right? So people are always saying, okay, why are you getting involved in this? But I'm saying, like, even for all the normal trade, it has to become normal and regular to care about the environment as well. I don't think we have the luxury to stop caring about it. It's not possible.
Absolutely. That's extremely important. So now I have a tricky question for you. Maybe it's a little bit weird. So if you had a magic power, what would you do to make the fashion industry more sustainable?
I would have the magic power to make everyone who always says, I care about sustainable fashion, to only buy sustainable fashion. Because, in all of the interviews or, if people are in the street, you ask them, okay, do you care about how your fashion is being made? And do you care about the environment? Everyone, 100%, they say, yes, sure, of course. But then in the end, if they go into the shop, everyone is buying the cheapest product. And no, of course not everyone, I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean. In the end, in their decision to buy a product, the sustainable aspects are not as important anymore. So I would really wish that everyone who claims they care about it actually show the brands and the companies by only buying those products which are actually sustainable. That would be, I think this would solve our problem overnight, because no brand would produce harmful products anymore. Yeah.
But I want to ask you if you think there are other technologies that can play a role in transitioning to a greener economy, and if technology as a whole can really play a role as an enabler for change, or if not, if you don't agree.
No, we absolutely agree with this. In the beginning, we started to nominate, we know where our products are being produced because our QC, our quality control people are in the factory during production and checking and sending pictures, report every day. But for the materials, we started to nominate good textile factories or leather tanneries to say, okay, we nominate you for our products. Our factories are only allowed to buy from you because we paid for your wastewater test. We made chemical management training with you. We know you are good. And then we did that. And then everyone told us, yeah, sure, we're buying the material from them. And in the end, if I started to dig, nobody complied with it. It's so hard to trace. It's so hard to control. And this is, for us, for a company where we already did the work of nominating a supplier and doing this work, and still nobody followed my direction. So I believe that if with technologies where we can actually trace, okay, the exact location where our material was coming from, and that all involved sides have to confirm, yeah, this is it. I can prove this is where I get my material from. This made our life so much easier. And I believe without this, there is no guarantee and there is no control, because we cannot shift back our production that everyone is done here in Neumünster in our headquarters in a factory hall in the back. This is not going to happen. Our reality is a global supply chain, and if we want to control it, we need technology. We cannot do this with sheer men or women power. That's not possible.